firstly, I'd like to thank Arcadis for the fantastic work they've done to help us to move forwards with installing and program managing the installation of our electric vehicle charging points in residential areas. And I'd also like to thank the Department for Transport. We've worked for many years trying to apply for funding, and we've finally won some money, and we're grateful for that. In the same year, you wait for a bus, and then more than one arrives. Well, in fact, we've received electric bus funding as well, so we'll be having 36 electric buses on our fleet, which will make a big difference to air quality in our city centre. So some key messages I'd like to get across today is having a strong policy framework and leveraging off key targets. Also partnering. These are key themes that will run through my presentation. And thinking about unintended consequences, the positive and negative side of unintended consequences, and that's the purpose of this presentation. We have a very extensive program of active travel improvements, and this is just one of those active travel improvements where there are some swans beside a river. On the other side, they must have been salivating for years about the green grass on the other side. And as soon as they recognised that pedestrians and cyclists were using this crossing, they took it upon themselves to use it as well. And it's been very effective. What I'm demonstrating with the 48% there is we have a local development plan with a very strong policy where we have fought very hard with lots of evidence, looking at benchmarking of cities around the world, using first principles evidence to demonstrate to the inspector when we went through the LDP process what was achievable to set a target of 50% of travel to be by sustainable transport by 2026. This is over a period of 20 years from 2006 to 2026. We're now more than halfway through, got 7 years to go. More than half of the jobs have been delivered. There's 40,000 jobs, and we're lagging now on the development of housing, but we're getting there. We've got strategic sites going forward. We've got another 40,000 houses to deliver. We're at 19,000 now, and 16,000 of those will be on greenfield. Our active travel program is a very ambitious investment program to focus on growth and cycling. I was really interested by the comment that Kate made about capillaries and the network. Well, we have quite a lot of capillaries for cycling in Cardiff, but we don't have a heart, we don't have arteries, we don't have veins. So this example here is what we're putting in as a starter for 10 from the city centre, building out a network from the city centre. And you'll see that graph there shows people don't feel that safe. We want that green line up to be over 60% at least, perhaps 80%, and then we'll see a real step change in people cycling. This is just showing a plan of our cycling network and showing the arteries. The key thing with developing our program is that we work in partnership with people. One of the unintended consequences of that partnership was working with Public Health Wales. So we put in this bike hire scheme, and they took it upon themselves to develop their own strategy, and now have bike hire on prescription, which is a fantastic new initiative that's been initiated by Public Health Wales. So our electric vehicle initiative, our program, was based upon Welsh Government Smart Living strategy. That set out some targets, and the council acted upon that themselves to establish our own low-emission transport strategy, and that focused on primarily residential charge points, but also ensuring that we replace our fleet with electric vehicles. The target will be to do that by 2025, starting out with light vehicles and cars, and we'll be spending over around £500,000 to put in electric charging points. So we currently have installed now through this Department for Transport funding, which is 75% subsidy of the scheme, we've installed 18 charge points in 10 locations, and we'll be doing another 5 locations by the end of this financial year. We went through an evidence base. In our bid, we put in the evidence of surveys we undertook and of what people wanted. We went through our database of requests and identified locations from that, and then used our local members to help inform those decisions as well. It's important that we understand the limitations of what can be delivered. I won't go into the details. I'll leave that for Tom to go through. But it was really important for delivering this to make sure that the partnership with the DNO, the distribution network operator, was solid. And there's some good lessons to learn from that, which Tom will go into. In the future, we're looking for a commercial model. So we'll be issuing a PIN notice very soon, going to the market to explore opportunities. This just shows some of the ongoing survey work we are doing. We do an annual survey, which we also use to benchmark the 50-50 modal split. And it's showing that purchase cost is still the largest influence on people's decisions to purchase an electric vehicle. The latent demand in Cardiff is very high. Over 70% of people were considering purchase of an electric vehicle in the survey that was done for our bid. But the technology is proven. It's just a matter of putting in that convenience for those charging points. About 25% of households do not have off-street parking, so that's a major consideration for the council that will be driving forward our plan. This is a scheme that Cardiff has put in. It's called Greener Grangetown. There's a lot of awards been given to this scheme. It was originally identified as a stormwater scheme to reduce the necessity to pump stormwater and sewage. So now we don't have that combined system. The stormwater now goes into 40,000, a capacity of 40,000 cubic metres, effectively 21 Olympic swimming pools. It's working very effectively, and it's saving Welsh Water a great deal of money. We had funding from Welsh Water, from Welsh Government Working Partnership. A lot of great spin-offs have happened from this. Community engagement involved in planting, to the point where people were even planting vegetables. I live in the area, so people were planting pumpkins and corn. It was quite interesting. They were given advice about what to plant, but they decided to do that sort of thing. And there are economic benefits spinning off from this. The area is increasing in value, and there are social benefits as well from improving the area. Cardiff has an ambitious target to achieve be carbon neutral by 2030. We have a clean air plan that we are going through with the Welsh Government. We have submitted a bid for 20 million to address the clean air issue we have on one of our main streets in the centre of Cardiff, to reduce nitrous oxide emissions below 40. And we're doing a lot of work with schools, with health. We're looking at smart corridors, and we're doing a lot of work to get the money to invest in Cardiff with Transport for Wales, for example, with the Borders franchise. There is a program of work that we're working with them on. And I'll just point out the carbon literacy training. This was developed in Manchester. Really recommend that. On my journey here today, on the train journey had on there was 17 kilos of carbon I was going to be consuming by travelling on the train. And if you work these through, you look at what it would be by car, it would be like 3 times that. And working through the numbers from the carbon literacy training, I thought, well, okay, well, for Cardiff, what have we got? We've got 3 billion vehicle kilometres. What does that work out to be? Well, it's about 400 million tonnes of carbon. So how would we compensate for 400 million tonnes of carbon? Well, 80 kilos per year, a tree basically equivalent of carbon a tree grows by per year. So that's like 1 million trees, 5 million trees, sorry. So just puts things in perspective. So I'll now pass over to Tom.
So firstly, congratulations to Jason, Cardiff City, for leadership, commitment, real clarity of what they're seeking to achieve. It makes everyone else's job so much easier. And we're very proud to have played our part with partners such as Zero Carbon Futures as well. Now, I asked Laura, who's the program manager who works with Cardiff City, I said, I've got this kind of talk today. What would you like me to communicate to the audience? And she said, stay committed. It is achievable. And I thought, it's been really kind of going around my head. I thought, it sounds hard, doesn't it? It is achievable. And I guess that's the point of where we are, which is we have a bold need to kind of change the way that our communities move, and yet each step of the way at the moment is tough. And then we look at the climate emergencies, the net carbon zero challenges that we're setting ourselves. Scottish Power recently estimated we need 25 million charging points in the UK to meet this challenge. Now, whether these figures are correct or not, that's 4,000 charge points a day for the next 17 years. Yeah? And yet, at the moment, it's tough going to deliver what we are doing today. Yeah? So this is really a challenge for us as an industry, and us in this room. It's about how do we scale, how do we learn, and how do we build together the systems and the teams that can achieve the levels of ambition that Cardiff City and others in this room have. Now, as Arcadis, we're lucky in that we've been involved since the start, and we deliver some of the biggest programs across Europe and beyond. And so we've learned a lot, and there's a lot more to learn, clearly. I'm going to describe kind of 4 things that we believe are going to be important to the future challenge. And they're born from our direct experiences at Cardiff City as well. So number 1, we need to move from community engagement to community empathy. Yeah. It is really important that we not only mitigate the resistance that is bound to happen when we take someone's parking space away, or we put more street furniture outside of their house, but we also critically help and inspire the transition to electric vehicles, which isn't naturally going to happen simply because we've put a new piece of furniture there. Right? One thing that Cardiff is doing is currently developing online tools and apps to kind of improve that communication and get people involved. And there are organizations out there. I recommend you having a look at CityFlag, cityflag.io. It is an organization we partner with. They're US-based startup, and they are rethinking how agencies can engage with communities, create a much more transparent dialogue using social media, and take the power from institutions and put it in the hands of people. And I think we need to find ways to kind of ensure that so we can inspire demand, listen to demand, and create that level of community engagement. The second topic is that we talk about smart cities, but really smart cities need smart planning. The public and private sector organizations have to come together to kind of deliver what we're talking about. And so often it's the planning process that is the bottleneck and the challenge to us doing that in a timely, efficient, and effective way. An example, Jason alluded to it, but working with kind of grid companies is really critical to ensuring that we can move through an EV rollout quickly. Now, we've had experiences where there's a demand for an exact grid location to kind of get an answer as to whether the network will support it in that place. And then maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, we receive a simple no to the request for that particular location. Many weeks later, when we finally get a dialogue going, we learn that it's actually possible if we move that location 10 yards to the left or 10 yards to the right. Okay? And the key to this is open source data. We've talked about it time and again at this conference, and there are certainly a number of DNOs out there kind of making this information available. But it kind of shows what is necessary. And one other example is actually Transport for London has done a lot in this respect, of course. And we've trained an algorithm to be able to predict EV charger utilization really accurately down to a specific location, which cuts out a lot of time and effort and wasted investment when it comes to the whole planning process and rollout process. The third part is that whilst the asset itself is ultimately not a complex thing, the stakeholder environment is very complex, and the delivery challenges that result from that create risk and dependencies and complexities that really can slow down every step of the way. A programmatic top-down approach is what is required, and there's lessons that can be taken from other industries that have successfully managed to kind of deliver high-volume rollouts. One that comes to mind is maybe the broadband industry, right? Maybe that's Openreach or Virgin Media. Virgin Media is an organization we work with very closely, who have made real progress around the predictability, the certainty, the speed of delivery, and the cost of large-scale rollouts, with 180,000 connections made over the last 18 months alone. For some organizations, it will be about capacity constraint and not having the people that are able to process what is required. When listening to those organizations, we've been kind of establishing things like Ultra EVC, which is a turnkey supply, install, maintain, and operate kind of delivery. And I think it's about finding the right situation for each organization to kind of be able to unlock what's important to them. The fourth thing is a bit different. The fourth thing is about leadership, but not as we might think of it, which is kind of senior managers or political leadership, but actually about our children. If someone is going to cause the change that we need, it will be about the children in our schools and about how they change the mindset of the people in positions of importance, whether that is in a political context or in a private sector context. We've seen here in Birmingham, Climate Strike making a real kind of impact, and across the way to the UK. My own story and experience from this is a colleague of mine called Peter. I remember the ash cloud in 2010? Yeah. I was stuck with Peter in Moscow, and the only way we could get home was by borrowing a car, and Peter drove it all the way back for 43 hours. He was very keen to drive, and I spent most of that journey listening to his passion for the internal combustion engine and everything to do with driving. So imagine my surprise when he tells me a few weeks ago that he's buying an electric vehicle. I ask him why, and he says Daisy. So Daisy is his 12-year-old daughter. She refuses to be driven to school these days and has convinced not only that change in their lives, but many others. And I think that's the route that we need to go if we're going to kind of scale up and do what we need to do. So just to summarize, back to Laura, yeah, it is achievable. It's achievable in this context today, but this scaling up is achievable too. And we look forward to kind of working with organisations like Cardiff City to make future mobility possible. Thank you.